Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case, and welcome if you're currently here in the live chat. Yes, I did manage to escape from the field yesterday. It was kind of wild and almost got ambushed too. Now, for some who are completely confused, there is a link down below in the pinned comment section for you to follow after watching this video, okay? So, today's video, and bear in mind you can share your thoughts and opinions as we go along. We're taking a look at the latest up-to-date information regarding the Dylan Rounds case and what Candice Cooley has had to say from yesterday. Bear in mind there is a time zone difference, so when US news comes out it's late at night for the UK, so the video has to be created the following day after, okay? So we're going to be taking a look at key points summarised, but also additionally analysed with other points and my opinions. And it's to do with the East Idaho News Channel interview which occurred yesterday. Ned Eaton interviewing Candice Cooley and Justin Rounds. More of a formal interview. I did watch it. It was sharp, it was straight to the point, it was clear and easy to follow and understand. It's good. Ned Eaton does a good job with those interviews and coverage. Although it's not frequent when it occurs, it has an impact, if you want to call it that. So, just recent, we've already had breaking news and important information. Now we have additional stuff. I heard a few people say, oh, they're just talking about the same old things, same old things. Well, I don't know if they're talking about the East Idaho News Channel or the Duty Run interview. Either way, the information, what I saw and heard from the East Idaho News Channel from yesterday, very interesting. And it unlocks and opens other videos that need to be covered, some important ones in a visual sense. So, I've got it covered, it's under control, there's a lot to do, and there's videos that will follow, and we're beginning today with all this, right? So, the first key bullet point to mention within this very recent interview, Candice Cooley said that James Brenner admitted to taking the boots to the dirt mound. Now, when you just hear that on itself, that one sentence, it's like, wow, he's admitting to it. No lies, no trying to work around it. It just sounds really straight to the point. There we go, case closed. But it's one of those things, right? There's DNA on the boots which link to Brenner. So Brenner can't really wriggle out of it, He's got to admit. So yeah, admitting to taking the boots to the mound. But obviously there's a condition, right? There's a few extra points that need to be added on. Because with the Dylan Rounds case, it isn't simplistic, is it? There's several layers, and there's also several layers to a person's response and a statement issued. So, sure, Brenner said, yeah, I took the boots to the dirt mound, but his response on top of that was he found them by the grain shed originally, and he assumed Dylan wasn't coming back. And you could be thinking, what's that got to do? Well, if we just refer back to what's been previously mentioned, whether it be in the Mob Crew's interview or the second interview with on Doug's channel, no thanks, in one of the two, Candice was talking about that at a point in time when Brenner was questioned, Brenner said, I've not seen Dylan for over a month, right? I've just not seen him. That might rejog some of your minds. That's basically what Brenner was referring to, associating it with the boots. The boots are at the grain shed, Dylan is not around, then obviously, he's not coming back. Maybe he's gone off doing other things, he's quit. That, I guess, what Brenner was trying to piece it together in that sense, create a story in that way. And Candice was saying, during that time, if I'm correct in saying, that Dylan, for a month or so, was working in Independence Valley, I assume doing custom farm work. I don't know if that's the exact one where he got the 32k check from, maybe. But obviously, if he's working elsewhere, then I guess it makes sense to why Brenner would say, I've not seen Dylan. Where is he? Then when you tie it to the boots, that's where it kind of gets messy, because Candice did say that those boots are fresh. They're not worn, they're not weathered, there's not really dust on them. You know, how you would expect if you've got an object, an item out in the open, exposed to all elements, the temperature change, the weather change, the heat, and if it rains, etc. But when they found it, the search and rescue, at the very start, it was like, well, these have just been put here recently, you know? So it kind of goes against what Brenner was getting at when he said, oh, Dylan's not been here for months. At a point in time, Dylan wasn't there for months because he was doing custom farming elsewhere. That's been talked about previously, but not custom farming around the time Dylan went missing. So you can see like a lie forming there. Now, I know to most of us, we would have heard about the phone call being made with Dylan to the grain shed, the grain truck. So he was active at the time. The witnesses, the campers, seen him on a Friday, late at night, doing the seeding in the tractor. So there is like witness reports and information which has obviously come out even from the very start, which demonstrates and highlights Dylan being active and present on the farmyard when all this happened. But in terms of Brenner's point of view, maybe he's unaware of all that information talked about recently. But Brenner, he's trying to make it seem like Dylan was actively farming elsewhere at the time he went missing, in a sense. So that's what he meant by, oh, I've not seen him for a month. Maybe Brenner didn't see Dylan for a month back in the past, but not in recent time. That's a lie. And it can be explained by the boots being fresh. They're not like worn or weathered. So that's the first key point mentioned. So it's one of those things where Brenner is going halfway. He's meeting halfway. He's admitting to being responsible for putting the boots there because there's a high chance he was in fact responsible. But he's not admitting to, oh yeah, I put them there afterwards once I was done with disposing of Dylan. He didn't mention that part. And it's obvious because who would? A criminal, for the most part of it, isn't going to confess like that easily. So yeah, that's the first, I guess, key point that was mentioned, which I didn't hear previously. So that's interesting. And then the next key point, and although we've kind of heard it before, it's just the order it's in that's interesting because it's different to what I've heard of previously and the actual location too. And it's regarding on the day Dylan went missing in the morning, 6:51 a.m. I assume that's a Saturday. So I was originally under the idea that Dylan, was in his trailer or just got out of his trailer, made a phone call telling grandmother exactly what he was going to do for the day, what needed to be done, and get on with stuff. And as for the phone call with Brenner, that was just a quick attempt made before calling the grandmother. From what I heard of in the Candice Cooley interview yesterday, all that's not quite true. In fact, Dylan made the phone call to the grandmother first, and it was at the gate, not Dylan's farm or place of living, at the gate, which would be approaching and going down the road to the grain shed. So he's already made it so far down, he's at the gate making a call, makes you think, well, if he's down at the gate, he must have come down the main road. So was he driving his grain truck down it, got out, realised the gate's closed, makes an attempt after calling the grandmother to say, hey Brenner, can you open the gate please? I need to get my truck down here. I've already called my grandmother saying what needs to be done. Need to park the grain truck in the shed before it rains. But I'm kind of stuck here, Brenner. The gate's closed. How am I supposed to get the truck down? Get your ass up here now and open it, please. That could be how things unfolded, right? And if Brenner is in a mood, he might snap. I don't know if it'd be him walking all the way down the road to then unlock the gate and then snapping, or if the gate's unlocked and then Dylan drives all the way down to the grain shed and then he snaps there. But you've seen a few key words emerging, and reinforced in a way, or highlighted by the shack lady, how she said about the keywords of snapping, the gate, and then just now we're hearing about Candy saying about the gate, Dylan being present there when making the phone call to the grandmother and then to Brenner. It does make you think there must be a reason to why Dylan started phoning when he got to the gate, probably because it was locked. Now, this is the question I ask, okay? If the gate is locked, is there any way possible to just simply go off-road and drive around it? Can you drive around the gate, or is it not possible? Is it all fenced off? I don't know, because I'm not there. If any of you know, leave a comment down below, because I can understand if there's no access, so you're going to be annoyed, you're going to be frustrated, you're being denied of saving your equipment, your resources. You're being denied of that, so you are going to be frustrated, you are going to be in a rush, and you might be in a bit of a mood too. And that might not sit well with Brenner, because he, you know, how he can act, he's probably going to have enough and get angry. But if there was such a way of getting around it without having to open the gate, then it's kind of petty. So I'm not quite sure about the exact situation with the gate, right? If there's another way around it, then it's not the end of the world. If there's no way around it, then you probably do need Brenner. If Brenner's the caretaker of the grain shed, he's probably got the key, possibly, on standby. It makes me think to why does Dylan not have a key to the gate? Why can't Dylan have a spare key himself? Wouldn't that make things much easier and practical? You know, what happens if Brenner wasn't on the property at a point in time? Not when Dylan went missing, but in the past. What does Dylan do then? Where does he get the key from? Does he have to walk all the way down to Brenner's trailer, steal the key, unlock the gate, put it back? I don't know. Just these little situations I'm unsure of. But interesting though about the whole phone call situation, the order it occurred in and the location. So it does seem to tie more in with the gate situation, especially with calling Brenner. Now, if it was to do with Brenner calling whilst Dylan was at his place of living, coming out of the trailer, it could have been early in the morning, quick heads up to Brenner, hey, can you pick me up, you know? Or can you drop me off afterwards once the job's been done? You know, it'd be appreciated. But for Dylan to do it at the gate, it seems to tie more with the situation with that rather than being picked up. That's the way it seems to be slanting. Now, if you think differently, feel free to leave a comment down below. Now we should move on to the next key point, okay? And it's to do with Candice said Brenner said he was at his trailer all day throughout Friday up to Saturday, 2:30, I assume, PM. And after 2:30 PM, he went to the barbecue, which I assume is referring to the Montello barbecue Memorial Day weekend, as people have referred to in the past, and never saw Dylan. So is that supposed to tie in with what Brenner was saying earlier about the boots, not seeing him for months? I'm not quite sure, but if that's the case, and Brenner is in his trailer from Friday to Saturday, he's basically admitting to being on site. Whether Dylan was supposedly present or not, he was on site, he was at the scene of the crime, so he should and would have heard or seen something if it wasn't exactly him. You know, if we're saying another suspect was responsible. If Brenner is present, he would have seen it unfold, right? So, you know, there's different ways of interpreting it. Now, let's move on to the next point, because we can return back to certain things in between, right? Just get to make sense of stuff. Dylan's phone ping. Now, previously, when I've heard about the phone ping, I only heard of one location, which was more west. Recent time about the phone being found at the pond. That could explain to why the final phone ping was over that way, because it was in parallel to the pond, so that makes sense. In terms of the order, though, of these locations where the phone pings were at, it's uncertain to at what point Dylan was no longer in possession of the phone going to each location, right? So that's not really been confirmed, but they have confirmed that the phone itself has gotten about, right? So I'll just read it out in the order of what Candy said. The first phone ping, I guess, after the one at the gate when the phone call was made, turned up at the grain shed. So you could be thinking, oh, maybe Dylan finally got down to the grain shed. He's there to park his grain truck inside, right? That kind of explains that. Second phone ping was at Dylan's camper. Interesting. So he's finished with the grain truck. Maybe he's just gone back home. Job's done for today. There's nothing left to do. Okay, it could still be Dylan. Number 3. Next phone ping is at Jim Brenner's trailer. And it's like, so he's gone from there to there, back to there, and back to here. And it's like, why? I thought he was done. Why has he gone back to Jim's? Is it to have a word? Is it they've got like some kind of argument and they're tying up loose ends? I don't know. So like, why has he returned back? That's if it was Dylan returning back, okay? And number 4, the final phone ping was at Lucin Pond. Now, in terms of the order of how and where the phone pings were at, arguably, it's accurate to what I predicted in not yesterday's video, but the video before that, when I did a full-on recreation, representation of Jim Brenner's personal behaviour, of how he got about, in the sense that Dylan's at the grain shed, Brenner takes him out. Brenner goes to Dylan's place of living, as the phone ping demonstrates, to get hold of Dylan's truck. Goes back to basically the grain shed, or near to Jim's trailer, where Dylan is roughly around. Puts Dylan into the vehicle, drives off to dispose of him, and on the journey, chucks the phone in the pond. All in the direction and order, categorically, as how I listed it 2 days ago. Isn't that weird? Before this information truly came out, I kind of got it right, arguably speaking, just in terms of the order, okay? It's still unconfirmed to who was in possession of the phone at certain points throughout, you know? It was on Dylan, but for how long was it on Dylan till it was taken off him, right? Because surely it would have been for it to be found in the pond later on. So that's interesting. Yes, I did make notes because it is necessary. So it's like a slide reel of notes. So you can take that into mind. You can try and internalize it. Those key points mentioned about Brenner being responsible for putting the boots at the dirt mound. I know it's that, well, it's obvious, DNA on the boots. But is it interesting to you that he's admitted, but at the same time not admitted to Dylan's outcome? He's put a swerve on it, saying, yeah, I'm responsible for the boots, but Dylan wasn't there. Not seen him. Like, coming halfway, but not all the way. So, yeah, and the phone ping too, leave your thoughts about that. Now, let's move on to the next few key points. So, Brenner said he was at Lucin Pond before visiting Don for lunch. I assume this is all to do with Saturday. And this is a thing where it kind of confuses me briefly, because earlier Candice was saying that on the Saturday, when it got to 2:30 p.m, I assume, that's when Brenner went to the barbecue, which I assume is the Montello Memorial Day one. So if that's at 2:30 p.m, it's kind of over lunchtime, right? Kind of late, but people eat lunch late. So why was Candy saying that, well, why did Brenner say he visited Don for lunch? Was Don in Montello as well? Or did Brenner visit Don's place of living in Lucin for lunch? I don't understand that. The barbecue is in Montello and Brenner goes there at 2:30, right? Well, that's kind of like, I guess, lunch, or just getting over lunch. So then why is he then going to Don's for lunch as well? How can he be in two places at once? Or was Don at Montello's barbecue. Can anyone try and explain that? It's just doesn't seem to be clicking with me. Unless he went to Don's for dinner, tea time, not tea in what you drink, but tea in food. That's the English wording of that, okay? So, kind of a bit messy there. But the key point is, regardless, was Brenner in the build-up to going wherever, Montello or Don's place, he stopped by at Lucin Pond, maybe to get a bit of scenery, take it in, have a bit of quiet time. I don't know what you'd call it, what people might do. But obviously, it's a problem. Why? Because it's occurring the time when Dylan's phone was thrown into the pond there. So basically, Brenner was present at the pond where the phone just so happened to be thrown in. So Brenner admitted earlier to moving the boots at the mound, and also Brenner also being in the place where the phone was thrown in. So it's kind of like he's admitting to everything without really admitting directly. Does that make sense? So yeah. As well, Candice also said Dylan's phone the journey or the route of it taken to the pond was on the back way, which I assume is like the back roads, a back dirt road, which goes onto Lucin Pond. And she said Brenner is really the only one that takes that road. So then again, it's time back to him, right? Reinforcing it, right? Oh, it's all linked onto him. Now this is where the key points start coming in. You know, when it comes to contradictions and lies, I can pick up on them. And it was picked up upon by Candice within that East Idaho news channel. So if Brenner is saying he didn't see Dylan all day, if not longer, over a month, then why was Dylan arguably at Brenner's trailer? Because that's where the phone ping was at, right? If Dylan, on the day, as it was listed, he was at the gate to begin with, making the phone calls to individuals, it wouldn't be hard to believe that he might have walked down to Jim's trailer to knock on and say, hey, why are you not answering me? Because that's the thing, when Dylan was at the gate phoning Brenner, Brenner didn't pick up, he didn't answer, probably ignoring him. So then Dylan probably thought, right, I'll walk down myself, knock on the trailer. Hey, where are you, Brenner? Why are you ignoring my calls? You should be opening the gate. And that could have been when things unfolded, right? So with how things align and the phone pings, and with Brenner saying, I've not seen Dylan, well, it seems as if he probably did at the trailer, confrontation. So Brenner lied. Brenner saying, oh, I've not seen Dylan for a month. Well, I think you have. So that's the first lie from the looks of it, based off the phone ping. The next one, Brenner saying, oh yeah, I've been at my trailer all day through Friday till Saturday up to 2:30. Oh, but I also went to the pond. Well, then that means you weren't in your trailer all the time, you went onto the pond, so you lied there. Now, depending how it's worded, you could argue and say, well, Brenner was in the trailer all through Friday and then Saturday, and then when it got to the 2:30 mark, when he went on to Montello, he could have stopped by the pond, deposited the phone, and then went on to Montello. So, although Candice Cooley is saying Brenner is lying, you could say, depending the order, he wasn't. If Brenner was in his trailer from Friday to Saturday, and then at 2:30, then when he went on to the barbecue, because it's all in the same direction going to Montello, he passed by the pond, so he could have just dropped the phone then. So that would have been after him saying. So it ties in line there, but you could just say it's weird coincidental timing how Brenner appears here where the boots were found, then Brenner appears at the pond where the phone was found, but Brenner isn't admitting to throwing the phone in the pond, but he has admitted to moving the boots to the dirt mound. So once again, kind of like with the whole evidence, some things are cleaned of evidence, other stuff aren't, leaving DNA behind. So why would you do that? But then it's like with Brenner in this case where he's admitting to doing one thing but not the other, but they kind of tie in with each other. So it's a bit weird, right? But because it's like one of those things where some criminals either all confess completely. Others might just play games and lie and drag things out. And other people are just completely delusional and say, nope, not me, I'm not guilty. But Brenner, half on, half off. It's a little bit weird, a bit different, right? So next few points after that, after the lies being mentioned, was about the gun and the key fob being returned. We've heard all about that before, right? Same old, same old. Was talked about it was done overnight time, putting the items back. Won't surprise me, do it at night. It's dark, no one can see you. It does make me think though, quick question, okay? I don't know about all the timing because I forgot when the trail cams were set up. Candice Cooley did place trail cams in the area. What I'd like to know is, did the trail cams pick up Brenner if he was still living there at the time? If he was taken away before the trail cams were set up, then it's kind of pointless, right? But if they were in line, could the cameras have picked up Brenner getting out his trailer late at night and then going somewhere off the scene and then repeating it the day after too? Because if so, that would or could link him to possibly going to Dylan's trailer, right? Because of the timing. So that's an unanswered question. Next thing, the spring clean. Yeah, we've heard about that, where the Ellie let Brenner just go into the shed, move things around and whatnot. Few further interesting details which can be covered in another video, right? And now it says, so Brenner supposedly took 4 bin bags out of the shed. The actual shed itself was still full of rubbish afterwards, so clearly he wasn't tidying up just general waste. It was most likely, more likely to do with Dylan in some way. Now, with it to be bin bags, is it just clothing, bits of evidence, or is it to do with remains? Like, although it sounds a bit dark and a bit of a stretch, but you know, like when those spirit boxes said Dylan was cut up into pieces, is that why Brenner was moving those bin bags around? 4 bin bags. One bin bag might have 2 arms in, the other one might have 2 legs in, the other one has a torso, and the other one has a head. I don't know. You know, you've seen it before when it comes to serial killers, and when the police have investigated a house, and then when the forensics and like the removal people come in, they take the evidence out in bin bags with body parts in. I mean, I've seen like crime images and stuff like that of the past, so could that be what Brenner was doing on the day? But this is the thing, Candice did say that those bin bags were placed on the back of his truck. And then after that, on a Wednesday, I assume in June, correct me if I'm wrong, on a Wednesday, Jim and Don drove down to Wendover, supposedly disposing of those items where the bin bags went. So is it worth taking a look down there? Possibly. I guess a video can be made on that, which we'll get to. So what's the next one? So yeah, these bullet points are a bit abrupt, switching and changing from different areas within the case, but this is just like the order of how it followed within the interview, okay? So hopefully you can follow along. Next point was to do with Cade Palmer, one of the detectives within Box Elder County. And sure, as we've heard when he did that public statement, if you want to call it that, or public response, in that article it said that they're treating it as a homicide case, but Candice Cooley said they've not officially changed the title. So they're treating it as a homicide one, but it's not called that if you used to, I don't know, look at papers or documents or search it up. It's still classed as a missing person case. Is it a big negative? Well, I don't know. It's still a negative because it's just yet lack of action. Oh, there's been changes. Oh, there've been developments. But once again, the LE are slow off the mark to do something, which is retitle the case, right, officially. So they failed to do that, along with failing to clear people's names because they've not really interviewed anyone, like the family. So once again, it's just yet another slip up by the LE, yet something else, right? Bit of a joke now. Anyway, what else? Now we move on to the whole contact situation. See, with Brenner calling family members, you know, the Cooley family, the Rounds family, and Candice did respond to who answered and who didn't. So Candice Cooley herself has had no contact with Brenner despite being caught, okay? Though Justin Rounds did talk with Brenner. That's kind of interesting, right? Now, from what Justin Rounds said, and he was in the interview with Candice in the East Idaho News one, and he did actually speak more this time, which was good. He spoke well, he was easy to understand, and he had a calm voice once again, similar body language as beforehand. And basically, Justin was saying, when Brenner was talking, Brenner was kind of wording it in such a way that he was finger pointing towards Chase Fenstra as possibly being the guy responsible for Dylan's disappearance, giving off hints saying, oh, you need to check and go down this road, something to do with Chase Fenstra, and you need to look on Dylan's land because supposedly Dylan buried things underneath. And it's like, what? Where's that proof though? So like weird talk like that, but it's as if Brenner is accusing Chase from overall. And Justin was like, in the interview, I didn't know if I was supposed to like continue or go along with what Brenner was saying. He didn't know how to really act, which is understandable because it's on the spot. You know, lots of things are going on. You can only do so much at the end of the day, right? Now, we move on to the next point, and this is tying in with Chase Fenstra. So, general public, viewers, people in the community might have suspicion with Chase Fenstra for numerous reasons before or still now, let's just say, despite the alibi of Chase Fenstra being caught on camera, CCTV at, what was it, like 10:30 p.m. in Ogden, eating a pizza at Little Caesars. We've seen that, we've analysed it, etc. But there seems to be another alibi. I don't know if it ties in line with the Ogden one. I don't know if it's the same exact thing, but I'll read it out to you now. Candice Cooley said on Saturday, the day Dylan went missing, at 7 a.m. So not far from 6:51 a.m. when Dylan made that call to the grandmother. So it's only like a 9-minute difference, right? And take that in mind, that 9-minute difference. Chase Fenstra was spotted on camera, CCTV, and he was at Flying J in Snowville, Utah, which is about an hour away from Lucin, supposedly. So if it's 6:51 when Dylan makes the call and it's 7 a.m. and Chase is at Snowville, with that hour difference, there's no way Chase could call in at Dylan's within a 6:51 to a 7 a.m. a 9-minute time difference with an hour apart distance to get from one place to another. It just wouldn't tie in. I know some people were talking about phone pings, saying Chase didn't have a phone or he was using a burner phone. His original phone wasn't working, so he couldn't use it. So if there's no pings in the area, then it means, oh, he wasn't there. But maybe he just didn't have the phone on him, and he could have been there, and there wouldn't have been much to prove that he was. There's more to prove he wasn't because of the phone ping being elsewhere, which could have been earlier, a day before, you know. Though it is CCTV, which it has been stated that Chase Fenstra caught on camera here, further away from Lucin. Well, there you go, that's an alibi, right? It means Chase could be innocent, right? And then Candice said after 7 a.m, I assume later on in the day, maybe lunchtime, he was spotted at Clinton, Utah at KFC. So there you go, CCTV again, caught him. You know what this means, though. You know what this means. It means Snowville. It means Clinton. Map analysis. We're going to look at every fucking KFC place. We're going to turn it over and we're going to get to the bottom of which KFC Chase was at. I don't know what Chase Fenstra's diet is, but bloody hell, KFC, then a pizza. What else was he eating on the day? Did he have a dessert as well? I don't know. But you get the idea of these videos, how they're going to follow. And especially this one. Yeah, some people are going to be waiting for that wacky one, right? Within reason as well, still sticking to this story and case, right? But yeah, things might get a bit dodgy, so be on the lookout for a dodgy video of KFC reviews, okay? Chicken, I can do a chicken. Congratulations. So yeah. Right, the next key point that was mentioned later on, and it's still to do with the phone call situation. Candy said Brenner did call the grandmother, right? And we've heard about the grandmother, obviously, because Dylan phoned the grandmother at one point. I think the grandmother is called Karen Rounds. The granddad's called Larry Rounds. Larry Rounds, who is long-time friends with Don Hatley, right? So with Brenner calling the grandmother wasn't like Justin. The grandmother, Karen, knew what to say, and she basically called him out with all the, information and developments within the case. And Brenner, being limited to knowing what's going on because he is locked up, he's not going to be informed about everything. So it will be new to him, and it might hit him hard. And from the looks of it, it did. Because whilst Brenner was talkative with Justin, saying, have you seen this? Have you been there? It's Chase Fenstra is to blame. When the grandmother says, well, actually, in fact, it's not because of this, because of that. Chase was here, he was away from it. Brenner's response was, well, I can't talk to you no more. You have to talk to my lawyer. There you go. That is a typical response, arguably from someone who is guilty in some way. It's like when cards are dealt back and the person doesn't know what to say, they fall back on a defense mechanism. In this case, the defense is their lawyer defending them in some way or another. Because I guess Brenner was like, oh, you know of this? Oh, you know of that? Shit, what do I say? I don't really have anything to come back with. I don't really have any lines. Oh well, talk to the hand because the face isn't listening. That's the type of situation, right? And he's falling back on his lawyers, maybe because he feels like he's been compromised, right? That with this progress and developments within the case, he feels like they're catching up on him, you could argue. Leave your thoughts down below to those points mentioned. What do you think about the whole phone call situation with Brenner and Justin, and then Brenner and the grandmother? Do you think there's anything odd, out of the ordinary, anything that needs to be looked at deeper? Let me know down below, right? And yeah, final point to make note of, in conclusion to that interview, it was Ned Eaton asked a question to Candice, what happens now? What do you do with what's going on? And Candice's reply was continue with the drone search, and Justin Rounds agreed because Justin was present when the Diesel brothers were there, using the equipment. So that's like the main thing. Continue using the drone to look for soil disturbance, to primarily look for Dylan, because finding Dylan will nail the case, hopefully. So really, that's the main thing. The background stuff has supposedly been built up with the forensics and the evidence and bits of DNA. Ultimately, Dylan needs to be found. So that's why they use the drone, because the drone is probably capable of, being more successful. So that's kind of interesting. What else was there? Pinpoint wash. Yeah. So Candy said the wash has been pinpointed. I assume there's only one wash, correct me if I'm wrong. I know Timelines have talked about the wash itself and some other people. The wash seems to be a main focus point. Candice was fixed on the wash from the beginning, as she stated within this recent interview. I can't remember because I've not looked that far back, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was a wash. The likes of Julie, who's a viewer on this channel, not seen her for a long time now, but Julie did mention about the way the wash is, with water and the force of it, it can move all kinds of objects and heavy stuff. So it could, with Dylan, push him so far. It could cover him. If there's like rubble and debris, whatever, all that stuff. And as we heard recently about the 6'3", 230-pound male that was found in a wash in Mojave County in Arizona, and that was in a wash. I don't know if he fell in, if he was pushed in, whether he was the water pushed him along in the wash. If so, then it could apply to Dylan, right? Dylan is smaller, Dylan is much lighter compared to that 6'3", 230-pound individual. Yeah, look at his outcome. So it could apply to Dylan too, right? They were talking about the track marks in the wash or something. Now, I know there was track marks previously from what Chris from the mob crew found, but that was to do when Candice did reply and say it was caused by search and rescue using their own equipment. So I assume the track marks, what Candice is referring to, is track marks which were there before search and rescue, or maybe in a different part of the wash area, which has not been assessed since, because she said no follow-up has occurred. But what they're hoping to do is either get some serial number, plate search of Dylan's truck and try and see if they can apply it to the track marks that were found in the wash and see what comes out about that. Because if so, then that could prove to why the vehicle of Dylan's was muddy under the wheel arch and why the rest of it was pressure washed. But although it didn't rain since March, which is a bit of a while ago, for the vehicle to get that muddy, especially under the wheel arch too, thick mud, if you're driving across dirt, yeah, you get a bit dusty, you get a bit dirty, but you're not going to get pure mud and thickness unless it's wet. And where could it be wet if you've not received much rain in terms of just the normal ground? Probably a wash or a pond where there will still be some kind of water remaining. Maybe not a lot, but still some, or it might just be a bit damp and wet at least. And the vehicle is driving down there, set to all-wheel drive to help, manage the terrain, let's just say, and to have the power to be able to get in and get out and stuff, then that's a possibility, and that's where Brenner disposed of Dylan. Now, I don't know if it's burying him in the wash or just literally dumping him in the wash in the open and then hoping for something to cover him or to move him down the wash. I'm not quite sure, but if they're going to use the drone there, it might come up with some kind of soil disturbance. Maybe there might be a lot of soil disturbance. I don't know if soil disturbance is primarily tracked by if someone's digging the ground, or if it was like other forms, like an animal digging into the ground, or the force of water and debris eroding the ground, or kind of like turning it up. Could that cause soil disturbance? Would that drone pick up that as well? I don't know how it detects. Can it split down the middle and say what's caused by a human and what's caused by nature? I don't know how advanced it is, because you might get a lot of loose ends or dead ends, right, when it comes to analysing these areas. But to be honest, if the wash hasn't been fully assessed beforehand with this type of equipment, then there's no harm in doing it now, right? I know it's a bit late, but it's still worth trying. So yeah, there's the key points, kind of shorter, but it's bullet points, it's supposedly facts. And when it comes to the facts in this type of setting, you can only talk about so much. It's harder to elaborate, though. When it's done in a visual representation, it's a bit more open to interpretation, right? So that's why other videos will follow at a later point, right? With the map analysis, looking at Chase's location, just mapping it out to the phone ping and other stuff, because, some people won't mind these videos of me just talking, but other people might interpret it better visually, such as key points, markers, colour-coded, and that can be done as well, and it will be done, so don't worry. So I'd say for now, that basically wraps that up. If there is any information or if there is any other videos out there which I've not watched, okay, based off from what I've said in this video, I have only watched the East Idaho News Channel video. I know there is Duty Run, but I've heard people say it's just talking about the same old stuff. Is there anything else besides all that? I know one guy, I don't know if it was Joseph or someone else, that said, whatever the fuck they are, channel, had video footage of the grain shed from back then when Salty Pancakes went, if you remember all that, how it unfolded. Well, someone's just recently uploaded the full footage of it, which is good of them, and it's also good of them that they have allowed me to be able to analyse the footage at a later point, and I probably will do. I don't know what format, but just like play it through and say, does this appear as that, does that appear as this, and it can tie in with Brenner's horse, it can tie in with the hole, it can tie in with a lot of things we need to refer back to just to try and understand what caused it and what was responsible, right? So yes, we can do that. I know I did a slideshow of it. I will leave a link down below or in the comment section for you to look at if you want a deep one of what originally happened with Salty Pancakes, because I got a hold of photos when the videos were taken down and stuff, and it all got a bit messy. So that's under control, but we can look back at proper footage by that, I think it's called True Crime Utah individual. And they were also present during the whole Brenner court case way back in the past, which was months ago, that brief one where it was talking about the past history, because this channel that uploaded that footage of the grain shed was also present at the court case of when Brenner was standing up there. So that's interesting. So she's been like first on full hand in these type of situations right there as it's happening and unfolding. So I'd say that's it for now. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching, and yeah, good night.